Books with Brandywine. Today is Wednesday, so I wanted to share with you a book that I just finished reading that I have been trying to think for a week how to describe this book to you guys, and I still can't quite wrap my mind around it. So I will just try to tell you as much as I can about it without giving you away all the spoilers of all the awesome things that happen in this book. So what is this book that I am so excited about? Well, it is the Phantom Tollbooth. And there's a pen across it because the previous owner's name is written on it, and for their privacy, I am going to block it out. But I have been wanting to read this book for many, many years. It was written in 1961, so it's one of those books that you see pop up on bookshelves every once in a while. You see it pop up at the bookstore every once in a while. And so I've always been very, very curious about this book. I didn't know anything about it, but it looked interesting. I mean, there's a dog with a clock on the cover, so it's definitely a little bit strange. But I knew absolutely nothing about it. And I saw it at the thrift store the other day and decided, well, not the other day, like a few months ago, and decided to pick it up just because I knew it was on my TBR to be read eventually. And then I was doing a readathon in December, and one of the prompts was to read a banned book. And I remembered that Phantom Tollbooth was a banned book. So I was like, all right, fine, I'll read that one. It's time. I'll get it off the list. And the reason it was banned was because a random librarian in Boulder, Colorado, I believe at an elementary school, decided that the book was poor fantasy and not age appropriate for elementary school students. And so she locked the book into a special room that had like other books that she didn't think were appropriate that I guess kids could check out if they asked them specifically, but she banned it. And so now it's always on the banned book list, even though only one person ever banned it. It wasn't like a mass ban or anything. And I don't know how much I agree. I mean, it's scary. There's some, there's demons in the book that are pretty scary. But only because they're very realistic and they're trying to get the main kid. And so I guess I could kind of understand why she thinks it wouldn't be age appropriate. But, I mean, and maybe in 1961, kids weren't really exposed to stuff. I've seen some old Disney cartoons, so no, they were exposed to stuff, so I don't know why she didn't think it was appropriate. But I read it the other day, and I loved this book. I would recommend that everybody read this book, because it teaches a lot of lessons that I think we tend to forget, and that we tend to just, going about our day, we don't really stop and think about these different things that are things that we should all already know and all be aware of, but I think it's just easy for us to forget. And I think this book does a really good job of reminding us of those things. So this book very much reminds me of Alice in Wonderland and even a little bit of Wizard of Oz in that he ends up in another world that's very crazy and colorful. Wizard of Oz isn't quite as crazy, which is why it makes me think a lot of Alice in Wonderland, which I haven't read yet, but based on the movies that I've seen of it, it really reminds me of it. So basically, block the name again, there's this boy here, and his name is Milo, and he is your typical kid in pretty much most ways, but he is incredibly bored with life. He gets us from point A to point B as fast as he possibly can. And then as soon as he gets to point B, he realizes that he doesn't want to be there anymore. And he never wants to be wherever he is. And he's never enjoying anything that's around him. He doesn't even see the purpose of learning in school because nobody's ever explained to him why it's important. So he just feels like learning is a huge waste of time. And one day he comes home and he finds this big blue box in his room. And it's addressed to him, but there's no return address. And since he can't return it, he decides to open it. And inside he finds instructions on how to assemble a toll booth. So he assembles this toll booth, there's some cutting and some folding involved. He puts up the 3 signs that come with the toll booth, and he climbs into this huge toy car that he has. And he pulls up to the toll booth and pulls out the map that came with the toll booth. And the map is not of our country, but of a country that is really random. And there's actually a map of it in the book. And so he pulls out this map here. And so there's places on the bottom there's Dictionopolis, and at the top there's Digis something. And there's the Sea of Knowledge, and so there's all these different places. And he puts his finger on a random place on the map and chooses Dictionopolis. And puts one of his coins into the toll booth, and off he goes. And immediately he finds himself on a magical road. He looks around. His house is nowhere to be seen. His room is nowhere to be seen. He is in this other country. And starts his adventure. So while he's going along and traveling down this road, he runs into some very strange characters. Everything in this country is incredibly literal. So the first place that he comes to is Expectations. And there he meets a man who is kind of like, he never seems to make up his mind. But he says, Expectations is the place you must always go to. Expectations is the place you must always go to before you get to where you're going. Of course, some people never go beyond expectations, but my job is to hurry them along, whether they like it or not. And I was like, that was like just one of the first few pieces of wisdom. Like, everybody in this country is constantly spouting wisdom. And usually the wisdom is taking phrases that we use every day and putting them in a very literal sense. But I love this because he's trying to get to Dictionopolis, but he has expectations of what Dictionopolis is going to be like. And so that's the first place that he ends up, is in this place called Expectations. And at one point he asks for directions to Dictionopolis. And he's like, is this the right road to Dictionopolis? And the man answers, I don't know of any wrong road to Dictionopolis. So if this road goes to Dictionopolis at all, it must be the right road. And if it doesn't, then it must be the right road to somewhere else, because there are no wrong roads to anywhere. And I'm just like, whoa, like, that is so true. And the things that he finds in this country continue to be very, very literal. So there's words and letters grow on trees, and numbers are in the ground that have to be mined up like jewels. There's a boy that his height never changes. He's just always at the same height, so his perspective never changes. There's actual place called Conclusions, and the way you get there is by jumping there. And he's learning life lessons throughout the book. Every time he meets somebody new, he takes something away from them that he learns. And like, even when he was with the people in Dictionopolis and they were talking about the words growing on trees, he learned that he literally had to eat his words. And just like stuff like that keeps happening throughout the book, throughout the series. And I loved it. I loved all the twists and turns. I even gotta tell you the names of these demons. Let's see if I can find the names of the demons, because they were like cray-cray. Yeah, that's right. I said cray-cray. So like, there is, what is his name? Where is he? Trivium. Terrible Trivium. So he gets you to do trivial things that are unimportant. And then there is the Demon of Insecurity. And there's, oh my gosh, there's so many. Let's see. There's this one part where it just lists all of the demons all at once. Where is it? Ugly Dilemma, and see, it's a picture of all of the demons. They're like freaky looking. Gross Exaggeration, Threadbare Excuse, Overbearing Know-It-All. So these are all just the triple demons of compromise. So these are all these different demons that are following them at one point, trying to stop them. And those demons all live in the Land of Ignorance, I believe it was called. Mountains of Ignorance. And so, oh, I never noticed they came that close to the Old City of Wisdom. But yeah, so he goes through this whole journey. They're trying, like, he starts out just trying to visit Dictionopolis. It ends up becoming his goal to try and return the princess's rhyme and reason to the kingdom. Because with them gone, literally the whole kingdom has lost all rhyme and reason. And so I loved this book. I thought it taught incredible lessons that we need as kids, that we need as adults. I am keeping this book because I am going to be reading this book multiple times before my life is through. I believe that the lessons that are contained in this book are things that we often forget and we need reminders of. And this book takes one day to read, so it is a really good way to remember things, especially because it is very literal, it is very visual. So concepts like wasting or jumping to conclusions is a waste of time, and that we come to expectations before we do anything or find anything. There's just so many different lessons. And I love how he uses turns of phrase. Like, he'll have a whole, like, there's this whole family, like, the family of the kid that never, he grows down, so his perspective never changes. Like, each of his different family members has a different, like, talent or gift. And it's so cool. Like, his sister can never look, or his sister always, like, sees underneath things, but if she can't see under them, then she overlooks them because she's high up, because she's just a baby or a toddler or something. So there's, I love this book. I love that it's in this fantasy world where everything is literal. I love that it takes a new way of looking at things and sayings that we take so for granted. Go read this book. It'll take you one day. It'll be fast, it'll be good, and it will stay with you.